Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. As Marcus sits at the table that he once thought would be his forever, how could he have ever imagined that this Thanksgiving would be a watershed moment in his life? The turkey is still steaming on the plate, and the sweet scent of cranberry sauce fills the air, but these familiar holiday vibes can't hide the coming storm. Marcus Thornton, 47, is a successful petroleum engineer who has worked for energy companies in Houston, Texas, for more than 2 decades. His specialty is the design of safety systems for offshore drilling rigs, a job that requires absolute precision and attention to detail. It was this professional training that allowed him to spend the next few hours analyzing what was happening in front of him with the calmness of an engineer. His father, Robert Thornton, a 40-year veteran of the oil industry, sat at the head of the table with a cold look on his face that Marcus had never seen before. For her part, her mother, Patricia, avoided his gaze, obviously knowing full well what was about to happen. "We're removing you from the will," Robert announced suddenly, his voice as hard as steel. "Your brother Derek deserves everything." Marcus felt the blood coagulate in his veins. On a night that should be filled with gratitude and family warmth, his world is collapsing. Even more shocking to him was the fact that his wife Claire was holding his hand tightly under the table, a gesture he had thought was supportive, but now revealed some meaning he had yet to comprehend. "Why?" Marcus' voice was surprisingly calm, as if he were asking for a solution to a technical problem. "Because you have dishonored this family," Robert continued. "Your marital problems, your obsession with work, and your neglect of family responsibilities. Derek has proven he's better suited to take on the family's future." Marcus turns to his brother Derek, a successful businessman involved in real estate investment. Derek's expression was a mixture of triumph and some sort of guilt that he tried to hide. Derek, 40, has always lived in Marcus' shadow, never surpassing his brother in technical ability or professional achievement. "Does Derek know about this?" Marcus asked. "Of course," Patricia finally said, her voice quivering. "We've discussed it all. This is the best decision for the future of the family. We've consulted a lawyer, and everything is legal." Just then, Claire let go of his hand, a gesture so slight it was barely noticeable, but to Marcus it was like the last piece of the puzzle falling into place. "There's one more thing, Marcus," Claire said, with a determination in her voice that Marcus had never heard before. "I want a divorce. The kids hate you anyway." Marcus looks over at his two children, Emma, 16, and Tyler, 14. Emma avoided his gaze while Tyler looked confused and clearly didn't fully understand what was happening. "Boys," Marcus said softly, "is this true?" Emma finally looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "Dad, you're always away. Even at home, you're always thinking about work. Mom says you don't care about us at all. You never go to my soccer games," Tyler whispered. "All the other kids' dads come, but you always say you have important work." Marcus felt a dull ache in his chest. He wanted to explain, wanted to tell them that every effort he made was to give them a better life, but he realized it was too late to say anything. "You have until midnight to leave the house," Claire continued, her voice hardening. "I'll change the door lock afterward. I've consulted with an attorney, and given your neglect and emotional absence, I have a good chance of getting the house, custody of the kids, and a large portion of your pension." Marcus notices Derek's reaction when Claire speaks. There was a flicker in his brother's eyes that he tried to hide, but it was quickly masked. "We've got some cash for you," Robert said, pushing over an envelope. $20,000, enough to start a new life. Marcus looked at the envelope and realized this wasn't a snap decision. It was a carefully planned operation. Every detail had been considered. "I understand," he said, his voice retaining that engineer-like calm. "But before I go, I'd like to ask a question. When was this all planned?" The room fell into silence. Marcus noticed Derek and Claire exchange a quick glance, one so brief as to be barely noticeable, but enough to confirm the suspicion in his mind. "It's been a long time," Robert finally replied. "We've been talking about the future of family businesses and what's best for everyone. Your marital problems were just the final catalyst." Marcus slowly stood up and looked around the restaurant that was once filled with warm memories. The Thanksgiving decorations glistened in the light, but now they looked like a satire of his past life. "I need to pack some things," he said. As he walked towards the upstairs bedroom, he could hear rustling and whispered conversations coming from behind him. In the bedroom, he methodically began to pack the essentials. clothes, important documents, personal belongings. When he opened his nightstand drawer to retrieve his passport, he found an unfamiliar cell phone. It was an iPhone he had never seen before, with unread messages displayed on the screen. Marcus's fingers slid across the screen, password protection preventing access, but the notification preview had told him enough. It's over tonight. I can't wait. D. Sure he won't suspect anything? He's smarter than we thought. C. Trust me, everything is going according to plan. Tomorrow we'll be free. D. What about the kids? Emma's starting to ask questions. C. Emma will adapt. Tyler's still young. He'll forget soon enough. D. Marcus put the phone back down as his brain began to analyze the situation with the logic of an engineer. Derek and Claire, his brother and his wife. The architecture of betrayal began to emerge clearly in his mind. He continued to pack, but now he moved more carefully. He pulled out a small recording device that he used at work to record important meetings. Tonight his instincts told him it was right to bring it with him. During the packing process, Marcus found other evidence. Deep in Claire's dresser drawer, he found a note from Derek to her, dated 3 months ago. I love you, Claire. Soon we won't have to hide it anymore. Dad has agreed to our plan. At the bottom of her jewelry box, he found a restaurant receipt showing Derek and Claire having dinner at an expensive restaurant on the weekend he was away on business. Marcus took photographs of the evidence and then put them back. As a safety engineer, he understands the importance of evidence collection. As he descends the stairs, Marcus notices that the family dynamic has subtly changed. Derek sat closer to Claire, and their parents looked relieved, as if a long-time burden had finally been lifted. I'll be gone by 12 tonight, Marcus announced. But I have a request. What request? Robert asked warily. Give me an hour to talk to the kids alone. They should hear my side of the story. Claire immediately shook her head. Absolutely not. You've done enough damage to them already. 30 minutes, Marcus insisted. Before I leave their lives forever. After much debate, they finally agreed to 20 minutes. Marcus led Emma and Tyler to the den and closed the door. Boys, he began. I want you to know that no matter what happens, I love you. I know my job takes up too much time, but every day is about making sure you have the best possible future. Emma's eyes started to tear up. But Dad, Mom says you never cared about our feelings. She said all you care about is your job and money. Your mom says a lot of things, Marcus said softly. But I hope that one day you will be able to judge for yourselves what is true. Now, I'm going to leave a phone number for each of you. If you need any help, at any time, you can call this number. He wrote down 2 slips of paper with his personal cell phone number and a code word he had just thought of, RIG. If ever you want to know the truth, send me this code word. I'll tell you everything. But remember, the truth hurts sometimes. Tyler looked at the note in confusion. Dad, where are you going? I'm starting a new life, Marcus replied. But I hope one day it will include you. When the 20 minutes were over, Marcus returned to the living room. Claire stood in the doorway, a garbage bag in her hand. These are what's left of you, she said, not hiding the scorn in her voice. I've gotten rid of everything else you thought was important. Marcus took the bag without examining its contents. He knew this was just part of the humiliation, and all he needed now was to stay calm. There's one more thing, Marcus, Claire said, a cold smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. I have contacted the best divorce lawyers in Texas. I'm asking for the house, custody of the kids, and half of your pension. Considering your neglect and emotional abuse, I'm sure the court will support my request. Emotional abuse? Marcus repeated. Yes, Claire's voice became sharper. Your indifference, your neglect, the way you put work before family. These are forms of emotional abuse. I've made detailed notes. Marcus realizes that this is not a sudden decision. It was a carefully planned operation. Every detail had been considered. I understand, he said. Then I'll leave now. As he walked toward the door, Robert stood up. Marcus, said his father, there's nothing personal about it. It's just a business decision. You'll understand. Marcus turned to look at the man who had once been his idol. Dad, in the oil industry, we have a saying that you can see the true strength of a pipeline when the pressure testing begins. All of you were tested tonight. What do you mean? Patricia asked nervously. I mean, Marcus said, his voice still holding that professional calm. Every system has its carrying limits. When you go over that limit, the consequences are often disastrous. He took one last look at the place that used to be his home and walked out the front door. Outside, the Texas night was warm and clear, the stars twinkling in the cloudless sky. Marcus gets into his truck, a Ford F-150 he bought with his own money, and starts pulling out of the driveway. Just as he drove to the end of the street, his cell phone began to ring. The first call was from Robert, then Derek, then Robert again. By the time he drove onto the freeway, his father had called him 13 times. Marcus has every call go to voicemail. He knew they had just realized something, but it was too early to hear their panic. He needs to finish some preparations first. On the dashboard of his truck, a small recording device was blinking red. The entire evening's conversation was recorded. As a security engineer, Marcus had always been in the habit of taking notes on important meetings, and tonight his instincts told him it would be a very important one. Now, as he drives to the other end of town, Marcus begins to formulate his plan. He knows that Derek and Claire thought they had perfected their plot, but they made a critical mistake. They underestimated the capabilities of a betrayed engineer. Marcus' cell phone continued to ring and ring, but he still didn't answer it. He needs to make sure every detail is perfect before he starts to fight back. After all, as he often tells his team, in the oil industry, one small mistake can lead to a huge disaster. And now it's time for them to experience what it means to be a real disaster. 3 days later, Marcus was sitting in a suite in a luxury downtown hotel with a variety of documents, photographs, and electronic devices on the coffee table in front of him. He chose the hotel not only for its privacy, but also for its location just 3 blocks from Derek's real estate company and 20 minutes from his former home. Marcus was not idle during those 3 days. As a petroleum engineer, he understands the importance of systematic investigation. On offshore rigs, where a small oversight can lead to the collapse of the entire structure, he is accustomed to thorough analysis and planning. His first call was to private investigator Janet Rodriguez, a former FBI agent who had conducted background checks for his company. "Janet, I need your services," Marcus said. "And this time it's personal." "Of course, Marcus. What happened?" "I need you to fully investigate the relationship between Derek Thornton and Claire Thornton. I need timelines, locations, financial transactions, and any evidence that proves the nature of their relationship. The budget is not an issue. This sounds like a complicated case. Do you suspect something between them?" "I don't doubt it, Janet. I know. I just need proof." The second call was to his lawyer, Benjamin Walsh, a legal expert well known in oil industry disputes. "Ben, I need you to prepare the divorce papers, but not file them right away. Also, I need to know the specific laws in Texas regarding the legality of recorded evidence." "Marcus, you sound like you're preparing for war." "I do." The third call was to his friend at the bank, financial advisor Sarah Chun. "Sarah, I need to move all my assets into separate accounts. I also need a detailed financial audit, including any possible unauthorized transactions." "Marcus, this is a big decision." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely sure. I also need you to investigate any possible concealment or transfer of assets." The fourth call was to his company's personnel department. "I need to request a month of emergency leave," Marcus said. "A family emergency." "Of course, Marcus. Do you need any help?" "No, thanks. I'll handle the situation myself." By the fourth day, the results of the survey began to pour in. Janet's report is detailed and shocking. "Marcus, I've got to tell you, it's more complicated than you think," Janet said during their private meeting. "Derek and Claire have been in a relationship for at least 18 months. I found hotel records, restaurant bills, and even evidence of them traveling together." She handed him a stack of photos and papers. The photos showed Derek and Claire getting intimate in a variety of settings, spanning from last summer until last month. "What's even more interesting," Janet continued, "is that Derek opened an offshore account in the Cayman Islands 8 months ago. Coincidentally, this is right around the time your father started talking about changing his will." Marcus studied the evidence as his engineer brain began to build the architecture of the entire conspiracy. "How much money is in the account?" "It's about $500,000 at the moment. The source of the funds is interesting. Partly from your father's company's account and partly from your and Claire's joint account." "My joint account?" "Yes. For the past 6 months, Claire has been making small but frequent transfers. No more than $10,000 at a time, so as not to trigger the bank's automated reporting system." Marcus felt anger burning in his chest, but he kept a surface calm. "Anything else?" "There is. Claire has been meeting confidentially with a law firm specializing in high-net-worth divorce cases. She also consulted a child psychologist to discuss how to get children to think negatively about their fathers. Child psychologist? Yes. The record shows she inquired about the terminology used regarding the psychological effects of absent fathers on children and how those effects could be most effectively presented in court. Marcus's expression didn't change, but the anger inside him was building like the pressure on a rig. One last thing, Janet continued. I've discovered some anomalies about your father's company finances. It looks like Derek has been convincing your father to make some risky investments, some of which have resulted in significant losses. What kind of investment? It's mainly real estate development projects. Derek convinced your father to invest in 3 projects totaling over $2 million. But these projects were developed by Derek's own company, essentially using your father's money to fund Derek's business. This information caused Marcus to pause for a moment. He begins to realize that the scale of the conspiracy goes far beyond simple adultery and inheritance battles. Janet, I need you to keep investigating. I want to know every detail of this plan. Sure. But Marcus, what are you going to do with this information? I'll make them pay the price they deserve. That night, Marcus laid out his plan to fight back. He calls it structural failure, a concept borrowed from engineering that refers to the cascading collapse of an entire structure when key support points of a system are systematically undermined. He divided the plan into 7 stages, each designed to attack a different aspect of their plot. Marcus first needs to make sure he has enough evidence to back up his counterattack. He installed legally recognized surveillance software on household accounts and devices in his name, which are perfectly legal in Texas because he remains the legal co-owner. Through this surveillance, he quickly obtained more records of communications between Derek and Claire. One of the most shocking is an audio recording of their conversation before Thanksgiving dinner. Are you sure Marcus won't be suspicious? Claire's voice asks on the recording. He's sharper than I thought. Don't worry, Derek replied. He's too preoccupied with his work to notice anything happening at home. And even if he suspected, it was too late now. Dad has agreed to a new will, and your divorce attorney has all the papers ready. But what about the children? Emma started asking questions. She asked why we were going on so many dates. Emma will understand. We told her it was all for her own good. Once Marcus leaves, I'll move in and become her new father. Tyler's too young to remember much. Are you sure this is the right thing to do? Sometimes I think we go too far. Claire, you can't back out now. We've put too much into it. My account in the Cayman Islands is ready for us to start a new life there. Marcus heard this and for the first time felt real anger. Not only have they betrayed him, but they plan to manipulate his children and even prepare to flee the country. Sarah Chin's financial audit revealed more disturbing findings. Marcus, over the last 6 months there have been some large transfers from your joint account to an account that your name is not on, Sarah explained over the phone. The total is close to $500,000. Does Claire have access to these funds? Technically, yes, because it's a joint account. But the pattern and amount of transfers suggests that this is a systematic transfer of assets rather than normal household expenses. Even more worrisome, she took money out of her children's college fund. College fund for the kids. Marcus's voice became dangerously low. Yes, Emma and Tyler each had approximately $50,000 withdrawn from their funds. The funds were transferred to the same account. Marcus realizes that Claire has been preparing for the divorce proceedings by trying to hide and move assets before the legal process begins. To make matters worse, she actually used her children's education funds. Sarah, I need you to freeze all joint accounts immediately and ask the bank to conduct a full fraud investigation. I also need you to restore the kids' college fund. This is going to cause a lot of trouble, Marcus. Are you sure you want to do this? Absolutely sure. And I need you to contact the bank's legal department and tell them I suspect my wife is making unauthorized asset transfers. Marcus begins investigating Derek's real estate business. As an engineer, he quickly discovered serious problems with some of Derek's projects. Through his contacts in the construction industry, Marcus discovered that several of Derek's recent developments had serious safety violations. What's more, Derek has been using the credit of his father's company to guarantee these questionable projects. I need you to take a look at these architectural drawings, Marcus said to his colleague, Michael, the construction engineer. What's wrong with these programs? Michael's expression turned serious as he scrutinized the drawings. Marcus, there are serious structural issues with these designs. These buildings, if built according to these drawings, could be a major safety hazard within a few years. Are you sure? Absolutely sure. These load-bearing beams are not designed to meet Texas building standards. To make matters worse, the foundation design is completely unsuitable for Houston's soil conditions. Marcus contacted the city's building inspection department to anonymously report the violations. He knows that once the investigation begins, Derek's entire business empire will come under scrutiny. But Marcus is more than that. He also contacted the Texas Society of Professional Engineers to report that Derek may be designing buildings without proper engineering certification. Through Janet's investigation, Marcus discovers that Derek's Cayman Islands accounts may be involved in tax evasion. Janet, I need you to provide Derek's offshore account information to the IRS. Marcus, this is a big step. Are you sure you want to do this? Absolutely sure. If Derek is avoiding taxes, then he should face the consequences. Okay, but you need to know that once the IRS starts investigating, the whole process could go on for a long time. I have time. It was time to show them that he wasn't the passive victim they thought he was. Marcus began with a text message to Robert. Dad, we need to talk about Derek's Cayman Islands account and your firm's recent investment losses. I have some information you might be interested in. Then he sent Claire a message. Claire, the court is going to be very interested in your unauthorized transfer of community property. That includes a college fund for the kids. Finally, he sent Derek the simplest but most effective message. I know everything. The reaction was immediate. Within an hour, Marcus received angry calls and texts from 3 people. But he didn't respond to any of them. His phone rang all night. The voicemail was filled with messages of anger, panic, and despair. Message from Robert. Marcus, what are you doing? This threat will benefit no one. Message from Claire. Marcus, please don't do this. Think of the children. Message from Derek. You asshole, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. Marcus listened to the messages with a cold smile on his face. Panic has begun. Ben Walsh has good news. Marcus, Claire's transfer of assets constituted a fraudulent transfer of marital property under Texas law. More importantly, you have evidence that she was planning these acts before the divorce proceedings began. What does that mean? This means that the court will not only require her to return all of the transferred assets, but may also award you most of the community property as punishment for her fraudulent behavior. Ben continued. Also, I have the paperwork ready to file for emergency custody. Considering the evidence of Claire's attempts to manipulate the children's perception of you and her misappropriation of the children's education funds, we have a good chance of getting full custody. Full custody? Yes. Courts typically do not tolerate attempts by a parent to manipulate children's emotions, especially when there are records of professional counseling and evidence. When can these documents be submitted? Tomorrow morning. I suggest we file the divorce petition, asset recovery petition, and emergency custody petition at the same time. A one-time legal assault. Marcus knows that Derek and Claire care most about their social status and reputation. It's time to attack that weakness. He contacted the Houston Business Journal, a local business magazine, and anonymously provided information about Derek's business violations. I have some information that may be of interest to your readers, Marcus said by phone. About a local real estate developer's safety violations. Reporters quickly became interested in the story, especially when Marcus provided detailed architectural drawings and safety reports. He also reached out to parent organizations in the community to share evidence about Claire's attempts to manipulate children's minds. As a parent who cares about the welfare of your children, I feel you should be aware of this behavior, Marcus wrote in an email to the president of the parents' organization. Soon, stories about Derek Thornton's real estate fraud and Claire Thornton's child psychological manipulation began to spread through the community. After a week, Marcus finally decides to take his father's call. Marcus, you have to stop this. Robert's voice sounded pale and desperate. You're destroying an entire family. No, Dad, Marcus replied calmly. I'm exposing the truth. You destroy families. I just let the consequences show. Derek's business is about to go bankrupt. Claire is facing criminal charges, and even my company is under investigation. The IRS has frozen our accounts. These are the consequences of your choices. You think you can betray me without paying the price, but you are wrong. Robert was silent for a moment, then said, "We can start over, rework the will, and have Claire stop the divorce proceedings." Marcus laughed, the first time he'd laughed in weeks. "Dad, in engineering, some damage is irreversible. Once the structural integrity has been compromised to a certain point, it cannot be repaired. It can only be demolished and rebuilt." "What do you mean?" "I mean, the structure of this family is beyond repair. You chose to destroy it, and now you must live in ruins." "But what about the kids?" "The kids will be with me. The court will decide tomorrow." Marcus hung up and then immediately received a text from Ben Walsh. "Everything's ready. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., we begin the legal process." The court hearing was a complete victory. Ben Walsh showed the judge all the evidence: records of Claire's asset transfers, records of her counseling with a child psychologist, evidence of Derek and Claire's adultery, and Derek's business fraud. "Your Honor," Ben said, "we're not dealing with a simple divorce case, but a systematic case of fraud and psychological manipulation. Not only did the defendant betray her husband, but she also tried to manipulate her children and even misappropriated their education funds." Claire's attorney tries to defend her, but his efforts seem feeble in the face of such overwhelming evidence. "Your Honor, my client admits she made a mistake, but she is willing to make amends." "Compensation?" the judge asked. "How does she compensate for the damage done to the children's psyche?" The judge's decision was swift and severe. Marcus was granted full custody of the children, and Claire was limited to supervised visitation. All transferred assets must be returned, including the children's college fund. What's more, the judge ordered Claire to pay all of Marcus's legal fees and gave her a stern reprimand for her fraudulent behavior. Derek's business empire completely collapsed over the next few weeks. The city's investigation uncovered multiple safety violations that resulted in the revocation of Derek's building permit. IRS investigations have uncovered a significant amount of tax evasion, resulting in large penalties and interest. To make matters worse, the investigation revealed that Derek had been embezzling funds from his father's company to prop up his failed investments. Not only did this lead to Derek facing criminal charges, but it also put Robert's company in financial jeopardy. The Houston Business Journal story was headlined, "Local real estate developer Derek Thornton suspected of multiple frauds." The article details Derek's security breaches and financial fraud. Within a week, all of Derek's business associates cut ties with him. His offices were seized, his personal assets were frozen, and he faces multiple criminal charges. A few days later, Marcus receives a text message from Emma with just 2 words, "Rig." He called her back immediately. "Dad." Emma's voice sounded small and fragile. "It's me, baby. Are you okay?" "Not so good. The house is a mess. Mom's been crying, and Uncle Derek hasn't shown up in days. There's been a lot of lawyers and police coming through. Mom says it's all your fault." Marcus felt heartbroken, but he knew it was time to tell her the truth. "Emma, I'm going to tell you something, but I need you to hear the whole story, okay?" Over the next hour, Marcus explains the entire situation to his daughter, including Derek and Claire's relationship, the financial fraud, and how they plan to manipulate her and Tyler's perception of him. "So Mom has been lying?" Emma finally asked. "Yeah, baby. I know it's hard to accept, but that's the truth." "Did she really take our college fund?" "Yes, but I've gotten the bank to restore your funds. Your education will not be affected. Can I come and stay with you?" "Sure. The court has ruled that you can live with me." "Does Tyler know about this?" "He knows some, but not all. You can help me explain it to him." "Dad, I'm sorry I believed what they said about you." "You don't need to apologize, Emma. You're just trusting the people you trust. Now you know the truth, and that's enough." A month later, the whole situation was completely resolved. Derek was sentenced to 3 years in prison on charges including fraud, tax evasion, and embezzlement. All his assets were confiscated to compensate investors and the tax authorities. Claire faces multiple charges, including matrimonial property fraud and misappropriation of minors' property. She was sentenced to 1 year in prison, 3 years probation, and ordered to undergo psychiatric treatment. What's more, she realizes that Derek completely abandoned her once her own troubles began. When she tried to contact him, he refused to take her calls or respond to her messages. She realizes that he never really loved her, only used her against Marcus. Robert's company was also facing bankruptcy due to losses and legal fees resulting from Derek's fraudulent behavior. That once proud family business is now just a crumbling shadow. Robert himself faces multiple charges for his compliance responsibilities in Derek's fraud. His health has also deteriorated severely due to stress. Marcus now lives in a new house with Emma and Tyler living with him. The house was bigger and more modern than their previous home, with a swimming pool and a large garden. The children quickly adapted to their new surroundings. It took Tyler some time to make sense of what was happening, but eventually he did see the truth. "Dad?" Tyler asked one weekend morning, "Why is Mom doing this?" "Sometimes, Tyler, people make bad choices. They may do things to hurt others because of greed, jealousy, or other reasons. It's important that we learn from this and not repeat the same mistakes." "But she's our mom." "Yes, she is your mom, and that will never change. But as an adult, she has to take responsibility for her choices." Emma now fully understands the whole situation. She even helped Marcus organize some legal documents, showing impressive maturity. "Papa," she said one evening, "I want to study law. I want to make sure people like Mom and Uncle Derek can't hurt other families." Marcus is proud. "That's a good choice, Emma. I'll support you in any decision you make." 6 months later, Marcus' life had fully stabilized. He was promoted in his job and became the company's chief safety engineer. His experience has given him a deeper understanding of systematic analysis and risk assessment, which has been invaluable in his area of expertise. Emma has done so well in school that she joined the debating team and is considering applying to a pre-law program at a top university. Tyler is also adjusting to his new life. He joined the school's soccer team, and Marcus never missed his games. On a quiet weekend morning, Marcus sat in the kitchen of his new home and watched Emma and Tyler play in the backyard. His cell phone rings, and the caller ID says Claire. He hesitated, then picked up the phone. "Marcus." Claire's voice sounded broken and desperate. "Please, I need help. Derek left me. I lost my job, and I couldn't even find a place to live." Marcus looks out the window and watches his children laughing and playing in the sun. "Claire," he said calmly, "in petroleum engineering, we have a principle. When you detonate a structure, you have to make sure you're not in the blast. You chose to detonate our family, but you forgot to calculate the scope of the blast." "What does that mean?" "That means you're experiencing the aftermath of an explosion right now. I wouldn't have saved you, just like you wouldn't have saved me then." "But what about the children? They need to see their mom." "The children can visit you under supervision, just like the court ordered. But you must first prove that you have changed, that you have realized your mistake." "I've realized. I regret what I did every day." "Regret isn't enough to repair the damage you've done, Claire. You need to rebuild your life and prove that you can be a responsible mother." "How can I rebuild my life? No one will hire me. No one will rent me an apartment. Those are the consequences of your choices. You need to learn to take responsibility." Marcus hung up and then deleted her contact information. A few months later, Emma asked him, "Dad, do you regret doing this? Destroy their lives?" Marcus thought about that for a moment. "Emma, I'm not destroying anyone's life. I just exposed the truth and made them face the consequences of their choices. In engineering, we call this systemic failure. When the foundation of a structure is destroyed, the entire system collapses. But right now it doesn't look like you're happy." Marcus looks at his daughter and realizes that she has become more mature and understanding than her years. "Happiness is a complex concept, Emma. I am not happy in their suffering, but I am content that justice has been done. More importantly, I now know who is truly trustworthy." He points out the window to where Tyler is playing soccer. "You and your brother. You guys are the most important family to me right now." Emma hugged him. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby." Later that evening, Marcus stood in his new office, looking at the blueprints of his latest project hanging on the wall. Tomorrow he will begin designing a new offshore drilling platform that will feature state-of-the-art safety systems and be able to withstand the worst storms. Like the life he had rebuilt, the platform would be built on a solid foundation, able to withstand any force that tried to destroy it. Marcus has an unread message on his cell phone from an unknown number. He opened it and saw, "You win. But at what cost?" He deleted the message without replying. What's the cost? The price was that he learned not to trust anyone anymore, except his children. The price was that he became more cautious, more skeptical. But the costs were worth it. as he protected himself and his children from further harm. Outside, the Texas night sky is clear and cloudless, and the stars twinkle as steady and bright as the safety lights on an offshore rig. Marcus turns off the lights in his office and walks to the home where his children are, the real home built of truth, justice, and unconditional love. A few months later, Marcus read a small article in the local newspaper that Derek Thornton had been transferred to a higher security prison because of conflicts with other inmates in the facility. Claire Thornton was rearrested for violating the conditions of her probation. Marcus read the article and set the paper aside. Their fate was no longer his concern. He has more important things to focus on: college applications for Emma, finals for Tyler, and the family trip they're planning for the summer. There was no room for the shadows of the past in his elaborate new life structure. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.